Hello, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Today, I am going to address a topic that one of the listeners, viewers, brought to my attention, and that is the elder abuse, the way the seniors are being treated by their daughters, sons, and others. I've seen this sort of thing even in the workplaces, of course, in a covert sort of way. We've got the younger people who don't appreciate the older people checking them, so to speak, on how they're doing their job. They think that because they are a manager, or they think that because they are an owner or an investor or whatever their role is, supervisor even, or could be in the church running a Bible study. They feel like no one should say too much about what they're doing unless it's positive. Okay. And so the elder, the senior, is not going to argue with immaturity. At some point, the senior says, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm not going to be a part of this church. I'm not going to work with this group. I'm not going to have these immature managers, leaders, supervisors running anything over me. They can do that with someone else, but not with me. You see, part of growing into wisdom, being a better leader, a better manager, is to be willing to accept those things that simply need to be changed, need to be adjusted, need to be dealt with. And when someone has to tell you, yes, it does hurt inside sometimes, that ego, that, oh, I should have been on top of that. I should have thought of that idea, but you didn't. You didn't. And so you're to respect that person who thought enough to give you information to help you grow, whether spiritually, physically, financially, in a leadership role. But when I see that what I'm telling a person is not being received, I don't keep giving them information. You see, I don't keep giving them pearls so that they can be like a pig who tramples on them. You see, Jesus, he even moved on. After he said what he needed to say, he moved on. There's some people that are staying in positions, situations, continuing to rely on others and take the abuse because they feel like there's nowhere else to go. There's no one else I can turn to or talk to. I remember when my grandmother reached out to me one day, was very upset with a couple of her children, adult children, mind you, for being disrespectful. And I said to my grandmother, I said that you gave them control. Okay? You put them in a position where they felt like you need me. And I did an audio on this years past. The person who says, oh, you need me, is a person who has the upper hand on you. So the minute they open up their mouths and they even act like or even say quite boldly, you need me, that is when you start picking up the phone and calling someone to help you who doesn't hold that type of power and control over you. You hear what I'm saying? That's when you reach out and away from your relatives who like to play this game of, well, she needs me because she can't read, or she needs me because she don't have no money, or he needs me because he has trouble getting out the bed, or, well, you know how that goes with, the manager or the supervisor or whoever that might be who's a senior. They're getting up in age. Excuse me? You see, some folks needed to be written up a long time ago for being disrespectful toward those that were older than them. They should have been. And then eventually they should have lost their jobs. But you see, a young person going to give a pass on another young person, especially when they've got their personal issues that gravitate into the workplace. They don't necessarily have a reverence for the mother, the father, the grandmother, the, grandfather. They don't typically get along very well with their their older aunts and uncles, their older brothers, sisters. They tend to have this attitude that creeps up when you with the gray hair or the silver hair or the white hair shows up. You can see it on some of their faces. Oh, what you got to say now? Ugh. Every time I turn around, she has some type of statement or comment. And so, this may be true for some seniors because, hey, when you get older, you tend to get bolder. But for some seniors, that's not the case. They end up being very quiet about some things. Well, how come you didn't tell me? Because I know you won't receive the information that I'm giving. You don't respect wisdom. While you were observing me, while you were trying to figure me out, I was sitting back reading you. And I realize that, you're still very silly in your ways. The Bible refers to some silly women, right? They like to run their mouths a bit. Some of you all come across these type that, they're foolish. They're about their decorative, right, appearance, but they don't have too much sense. They don't have too much sense in their minds. They tend to act stupid. Some Amplified Bibles just simply put it, stupid. Okay? I'm trying to help you. And if I help you, I know that together, collectively, we're helping the organization. No, I don't need your help. Very mean individuals, mean-spirited. Sometimes you see the demonic rise up in them. And some of you who have been around for a long time, you know what we do. We plead the blood of Jesus. Oh, we see the little attitude in that little girl. Because that's what they are, little girls, sometimes little boys in grown bodies. She cries very easily. Look, she can't even take an opinion you give her. Look at her. See, now she wants to play the silent treatment. I see that. And now she don't want to tell you what she knows. She's withholding information. That's a classic one with some of the immature. Oh, you could have told me. You could have said this sort of thing privately, but you didn't want to do that. So your little passive aggressive way is to CC, BCC, and might even go and tell some other folk about something that they don't even know about. And they're looking at you like, why are you telling me? I don't know anything about that. But okay. Since that's what you want to do, let me just go and alert this senior, because sometimes they're seniors too. Let me alert my fellow senior that this young person is up to something. And so sooner or later, that young person's got to look for another job. I'm speaking somebody's truth. Okay. I do recall in my own personal life where there was an individual and he was quite young, and you know how some of them like to put on this very mature act, right? But it eventually fades away. And you see them for who they really are, because you can't keep up a mature act. You can't keep up acting like somebody who's 20, 30, 40 years older than you for long before you start to unravel and we see you for being what you are. A young person, still growing, still learning, don't necessarily have your identity yet. We see it. But, let's talk proper and let's act like we know what we're doing and all that. And then there came a point where he couldn't keep up that act, and he had to admit, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I'm coming to you and I'm asking you some questions. Okay, now you respect wisdom and you're coming respectfully. And so I was able to help him through, but he was not in a position, nor was he mature enough to be promoted so very quickly into a leadership role. And people discovered that, see, that's what happens. Just because somebody, happens to be there all the time and they're willing to help everybody out doesn't mean that they're ready to be in a leadership role. Okay. And so he was okay and he showed some respect, but this other one that was a little older than him, but younger than me, she had an attitude problem. And some of you all, you quickly want to envision an African American. She wasn't African American. This one was a Caucasian woman who had an attitude problem. I don't know if her attitude problem was tied to personal prejudice or not, but I do know that older people she didn't particularly like too much. She tended to gravitate to people who were her own age or younger. And how did I know that? Because she was consistent across the board. That was the one thing she was consistent about. When older people came her way, she wanted to talk down. And she tried me one day, and I had to politely tell her that I was already taking care of what she was telling me to take care of. Oh, yes. Matter of fact, I did that before you showed up. So after a while, I mastered the job enough to the point where she couldn't come and tell me anything. And I think that frustrated her. Because see, when you know your job so well, what is there to say? You have nothing to say. So what you do is that one who's ego tripping, who's still very young, starts to fault find, starts to nitpick, starts to run around and talk about, oh, did you know this? Did you see this? Starts to badmouth even. Starts to come up with his or her own personal opinion as to what you might be doing or might not be doing. And they tend to say this sort of thing to a manager who might look upon you favorably. See, I have been around, and I've even had to tell some young people, look, I'm not a spring chicken. I wasn't born yesterday. I know that you want to somehow mold and shape me, but I've already been molded and shaped. Matter of fact, there's an old adage that says you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And then I was told by someone who was older, she said, oh, hey, I got to let you know, we can't even say that anymore. What? No, because then it looks like we're calling each other old dogs. But I'm just saying, we're at a point right now where there's only so much that, you can teach us. I know, honey, but, we got to watch what we say. Whose idea was that? But at the end of the day, you are going to have these mean-spirited children, grandchildren, co-workers that are young and disrespectful because they got away with it among their family. And so they feel like they can be that way with others. And when you are that one that the Lord has moved upon and you've been gifted and you've been favored and you've gone through so much and all of that, you've also got to be the one every now and again to put someone in his or her place. And you can do it without the bad mouthing and, raising, what. But you can be that one that says, I don't agree. And you don't have to explain why. No, I'm sorry. But, that's not something that I'm accustomed to. Well, I'm just going to let you know that I have a lot of experience, many years of experience. I did not want to go around here bragging and boasting and showing off, but there is a lot that you could have learned from me, but you didn't spend too much time asking me questions. Rather, you wanted to tell me this and tell me that. You didn't reach out for my input. And so, I'm sorry you're going through like you're going through, but I got to go. And I know some of you all, at times, it can be quite challenging because you say to yourself, well, this is a good worker. Some of you younger folks. And I really would like to keep her around. But, she has this way about her where she, seems to be maybe a bit bossy, a bit controlling, Well, if she's been managing for 20 some years, maybe you shouldn't have hired her. Or, he tends to, talk aggressive at times. And, he's kind of, I don't know, he makes me feel like I'm a child or something. And I mean, he could learn some things from me too. Well, that may not be a person you want to work with, you see. But you don't be the disrespectful, arrogant, trying to outwit, trying to present yourself as being 20, 30 some years, like that one who really is 20, 30 some years older than you, you see. That's not going to do too much of anything but create friction, tension. And then if that person's been with the company for a long, long, long time, trust you me, if they're a good worker, the managers are not going to get rid of that senior. They'll get rid of you before they'll get rid of that senior, you see, with a good track record. Might not like the attitude, but a good track record, you see. I know that it can be quite frustrating. I used to be the one that was the youngest one in the department, just about every place I worked some years back. And now I tend to be the oldest one. And what I found was in my youth, I knew to have some respect because that's what I was raised to exemplify when talking to elders. But I'm seeing that now that I am in this coming very quickly, toward the senior years. I'm middle age now, but coming quickly toward that time period of my life, I'm seeing more and more disrespectful, lazy procrastinators, people who don't want to really do their job. They prefer personal pleasure over working any day, and pretty much looking for any opportunity to not have to put in a 40-hour work week. Okay. And some of us, we remember them days where it was 45, 50, even 60 hours. And some, you're still working them type of hours. And that's why you still have your job 10, 15, 20 plus years later, while a lot of those young people, they've been 5 jobs, 8 jobs, maybe even 10 or 20 jobs in less than 5 years. Okay. And then, of course, things have changed in the workplaces. And at the end of the day, a lot of companies don't want to keep anybody around for long because they don't want to pay for retirement, or they don't want to give but so many benefits out. So we're coming across that as well. Some of us who have been around in the workplace for, some time. But I will tell you that, the listener viewer that reached out to me about this, more specifically, Miss Terry, is that, when they're doing this sort of thing on the home front, we're going to go there. When you've got the disrespectful grandson or son or daughter or, cousins or whoever that are being this way, that are very much younger than you, you're going to have to be the one that firmly yet politely says, listen, we're not going to continue to have these conversations if this is the way you're going to be. And then if you're relying on them for something, you're going to have to find other alternatives in terms of getting things done, rather than calling this one up and that one up. Because a lot of times they're being disrespectful too, because they don't want to do but so much for you. You see, everybody has a limit of how much help they're going to give out. And we know that some folks, you can call them twice a month and they're good. But past that, they got attitude problems. Okay. We know that some people, you can be able to be in their presence, every other week, maybe even once a week. And then others, oh no, honey, you're coming around a little too much. And that's when the attitude creeps up. Oh, that's mama again calling. That's, daddy coming around again. I'm tired of them. I wish that they would go ahead on, get a life. And that's another reason why some of these relatives will be very disrespectful at times, because you are relying on them too much for time, maybe for money, maybe for errand running, or maybe they have noticed that you're withdrawing at times, and so they see your attitude and they reflect that. So much happens with these individuals, that sometimes we know, yes, there is definitely something going on with the younger people. And then other times we don't know what's going on. There could be somebody in their ear. And then sometimes there's nobody in their ear. They're just simply going through their change. A lot of times women, Lord Jesus, forget that women go through PMS. Others go through PMDD. Others go through menopause. And then with the males, the midlife males, they go through andropause. There's so much attitude that's connected to hormonal changes. Some folks have their share of weight issues, and so their attitude is negative. Okay. Some folks don't like the fact that they're going through as much when it comes to health. I remember there was a young person who she had more health issues than most senior citizens. And she would cop an attitude for just about anything. And I knew those days, after a while, it was almost like a pattern, because her cycle was connected to her health woes too. And so I would just get very quiet, and she'd ask me, well, are you okay? Everything okay today? Yes. Is everything okay with you? Oh, no, I'm fine. Mm-hmm. Some of them are in denial because they don't want to admit to the fact that they're having a bad day. Well, you can stay in denial, and you can also stay over in your office. Don't come over here bothering me, because I know how to say, it looks like it's time for me to go, and don't expect me tomorrow or the next day or the next day after that. So I thank you as always for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen. Be encouraged. Know that God did not call you to any type of connection with anyone that is mean-spirited, ugly, disrespectful, or anything like that. But if anything, we're going to pray for those people, and we're going to trust that God is going to work the situation out for your good, as well as for your enemy as well. Thank you, as always, for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen. You've been listening to YouTube NM Enterprise 7. May God richly bless you as well as those that you love. If you feel so moved to give, you are welcome to do so, and thank you in advance.